Welcome back to Studio Chatter. Our kids are having a tough time dealing with stress. Our next guest can tell us about that. Welcome in Amanda Stansfield from Wasatch Mental Health.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi, Amanda. Thanks for coming.
Goodness.
Sure.
Yes, we're so grateful for you for coming. So you've been in mental health for how long?
18 years.
Oh my goodness.
Oh, wow.
So you've seen a lot.
I have over the course of the years. There's been a few different trends that have happened.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And what would you say as far as children goes? What have you seen, from the mild to...
I think overall our society right now is so, there's so much focus on social media that everybody just kind of becomes enamored with stressors and parents wanting to control but maybe not control enough. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of warning signs that are maybe missed often,
right,
just because of the nature of our society.
Right.
So what would be some warning signs?
So in general, I think regardless of the age, you always want to look for, youth or kiddos that are isolating a little bit more. Mm-hmm. Maybe a drop in grades, for example. Mm-hmm. Not necessarily a slight drop, but maybe just a general unease or not enjoying things that they used to. Mm-hmm. Youth that become severely depressed or even just slightly depressed, they'll often withdraw from their friends, their support group, things that are positive for them. Right. That would become just such a negative thing in their life. Mm-hmm. And I think as a community, we really need to bolster our youth as far as reminding everybody to be more centered and, well-being and health. Not just our medical health, but our mental health as well.
Absolutely. So what would you say that mental health actually looks like? It's not children or adults even running around naked, is it?
Not typically.
Because that could be us.
Sometimes that would be.
Not very often.
Right.
So in a teen or a child, you would see more irritable behavior. Mm-hmm. You would see maybe erratic sleep patterns, staying up until 2 in the morning, maybe a lot of online chat room, things like that. Mm-hmm. A lot of erratic mood swings as far as super happy, like very pleasant, and then just a crash all of a sudden. So it looks a lot like puberty, for
and it
sure.
Sounds a lot like drug use as well.
It could. I mean, I think we have to be so cognizant as parents, right? And even just leaders in our community that we really watch and learn what the warning signs are, and just different subtle symptoms even, because it could be anything. I mean, everybody's going to react differently when we have tragedies that have occurred or a trauma experience or even something that we wouldn't see as a trauma. Their reaction might be very different, and depending on the mental stability, that can really cause somebody to go into a whirlwind.
I do have a question. You said you've been practicing for 18 years.
Sure.
And you've kind of seen some trends, and my youngest is graduating, so I've been raising my kids those last 18 years. Mm-hmm. And when my oldest was younger, you never really heard about depression or anxiety. Right. And now it's like it's the word out there. It's
for sure. So before it was autism, right? Or ADHD or bipolar, pediatric bipolar.
Okay.
It's funny because we have, different trends that happen just because of what is in our media, or, the books that our youth are reading, or, just even a Facebook clip or, Snapchat. It can be such there's a contagion effect, right? Mm-hmm. Somebody's doing it, it's attention seeking sometimes. But you also have to remember that the stressors we put on our youth and our children from a very young age, excel at preschool even, it becomes such a competition that these kids don't know how to regulate. Their brains aren't made to regulate all of these different impulsive thoughts, feelings, and emotions that are going through. So.
And do you think that they're just coming at them faster because of our social media, whereas 20 years ago or 100 years ago, it was just slower paced? Or
I think we just mature earlier, right? Like our brains and our bodies are maturing at a faster rate, but our brains aren't keeping up with what our bodies are doing, nor what the media is doing. And so the typical brain doesn't finish developing until 26. That's a big trend.
Hence, girls, you shouldn't get married before 26, because then you're marrying
So you figure we have all this maturity that comes with social media or whatever else, is going on in our society, and our brain's trying to keep up with that, and it's just not capable. So somebody that's in a crisis or, a very depressed or anxious state, they're thinking with their prefrontal cortex. And so that's a fight or flight. You're not going to have the ability to think through and plan accordingly.
Absolutely. And so what kind of things do children actually even harm themselves when they're seeking help, when they're looking for help? And are there signs again that we could look as parents look for?
So I would just be very aware of, different things like there, often kids will, cut or seek attention by posting things on media. You should. I'm a big believer in monitoring media for sure.
Absolutely, yeah.
I think you should be friends with your kids on social media, despite what they think. If they're embarrassed by what they're putting on there, you probably shouldn't post it for sure. So look for trends that way. There's often things like different challenges that people will put out there, or things of that nature that really buy into that negative loop, right? And it becomes such a contagious thing for sure. And so
it's hard, heavy stuff.
right?
Poor kids.
And I think also just a good family rule: have dinner every night, check in, right? Ask how your day was, and despite if it's a horrible day, then talk about that. And I think parents and caregivers need to be real about that as well. Like, yeah, it was kind of not a very good day, and it was pretty stressful, and this is how I coped, right? Negative or positive, that's what we have to be real. So.
But I think that's one of the things I loved most about growing up with my parents. They would say, "I'm not your friend. I'm your parent, and like it or not, that's
right.
We have to discuss it." And I think I've carried that through. Well, I try to carry it through in my parenting skills as well. And then you talked about stressors too, like how much is too much, because there's the isolation factor when maybe they're pulling away, but then how much is too much too?
Right. So there's always going to be a little bit of isolation that's healthy, right? All of us need that kind of regroup. When it becomes a problem where they're not going to school, or they're, I'm sick all the time, just these different symptoms or symptomologies that might come up, for sure.
Absolutely. Wow, that is heavy.
I also wonder, going into the summer, how can they regulate some of their activities, or maybe symptoms or things to watch for during the summertime?
So a big component of mental health, and any health for that matter, is we all need to be centered. We all need to have balance in our lives. So I think a big thing that needs to be really focused on is, we need to have a little bit of education time. We need reading, math, whatever it be. I mean, just something light, 30 minutes. There also needs to be time for some exercise. A lot of these kids are in competitive sports, but that sometimes is even too much, right? Because it's such a pressure. So I think as a family or caregiver or whomever the family component is, you need to just make sure that balance is there. Healthy meals, sitting down with your family for breakfast, dinner, if that's possible, that's fantastic. Going for a walk, going for a bike ride, whatever it be. Especially in the summer months, there needs to be structure regardless.
I love that.
So,
Amanda, we didn't even ask you where do you work?
So I'm with Wasatch Mental Health. I run the youth crisis team there, and we have crisis services available 24 hours a day. So there's a crisis line that people can access regardless of funding or insurance.
What's the number?
That number is 801-373-7393.
So anyone can call that number?
Anybody can call for Utah County.
Oh wow! And do they stay there?
We have it's service for 24 hours a day, so there's always somebody on call for sure.
Oh wow!
And you all know I work for Utah Valley Magazine, and this issue just came out last week, and I just dog-eared this page because Wasatch Mental Health was voted. So people that have been there and been with you guys were voted the #1 mental health center in the Valley. So congratulations.
Thank you.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Wow. Well, this is a heavy topic, but
It's a heavy topic.
I appreciate you coming.
Sure.
And I think parents just need to maybe get off their own social media.
Absolutely.
It's a temptation for everyone. You need
Develop
to
a
get off.
positive role model for anybody,
Right.
regardless of
Right.
who we're leading or mentoring,
Right.
for sure.
Oh, and so we should be aware of other children in our neighborhoods as well.
Right. We need to model those behaviors.
Yeah.
Thanks,
Absolutely.
Amanda.
You're
Thank you
welcome.
so much. I think one of the key words that you touched on today, balance. Absolutely.
That would be really good.
All right.
Thank you so
Thanks so
much.
much.
Thank you.
Coming up next, making plans for a fun summer. No time or budget? No problem.